Starting SaaS podcast. Starting a career in SaaS can be intimidating. I've been there, but it doesn't have to be. From the basics to the latest trends, this podcast will help you build a foundation and stay ahead of the curve. This is the easiest way to learn about SaaS from the folks inside of it. Welcome to the Starting SaaS podcast. It has been way too long since I've said that. And I'm so excited because today I have on Daniel Dawson, who I've been trying to get onto this podcast for 5 months or something. Yeah, it's been a while, but this is the perfect timing. So I'm glad that I get you on now. You just came back from Mexico, correct?
Yes, and I'm so happy to be here. Sorry for being a little elusive. I got back from Mexico at the beginning of March, so I've been back home for a month and a half now, and perfect time to do a podcast.
Yeah, honestly, and that's one of the pluses of SaaS is most SaaS jobs are remote or have remote options. So you're just able to go and work remotely from Mexico.
Absolutely, and anyone who wants to talk about working remote, working in SaaS while remote, working from Mexico, how to be a sustainable traveler while you're traveling and working remote, which is really important to me. Definitely feel free. It's another topic I'm really passionate about, so feel free to reach out.
I might have to ask you about that because I've been wanting to go to Mexico
Please.
as well. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Yes, please do.
Daniel Dawson has worked in marketing for 7+ years. Marketing as we know it, so like regular content marketing, SEO, email marketing, and he's also gotten into partner marketing. And so I'm excited to touch on both of those topics. He's worked in, like I mentioned, SEO, SEM, email marketing, full funnel demand gen, content marketing, partner integrations, ecosystems, app marketplaces. I'm so excited to pick his brain today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thank you for that intro, that lovely intro.
You're awesome. He's a badass. So I'm so excited to actually get into the nitty gritty. Can you start by explaining how you got into SaaS? Because I feel like SaaS is one of those things that nobody grows up knowing about unless like a parent is in it or just like SaaS seems so far away, or at least that's how it was for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I'm really happy to just share like my experience on that. It's really funny because I went into college a long time ago, coming up on 10 years, or more than that, when I entered college, thinking, like everyone, what do you kind of want to do? What were you good at? What are your interests? And what are your parents telling you to do? So for reference, my dad has his own business, and my mom is a nurse. So no sass in the family. Firstborn sass in the family worker, I think for me. But starting in college, I really was interested in publishing and writing was one of my strong skills and interests in journalism, asking questions, writing stories, which has a lot to do with marketing. So that only made sense from that transition. But in my undergrad, I definitely tried to get as much experience as I could doing different things, whether that was being involved with the campus literary and art magazine, working for local publications, everything that was kind of related to what I thought I wanted to do. And it wasn't until later in my coursework when you start learning about marketing communications, advertising, different kind of courses like that. I mean, my favorite course was mythology, by the way, so again, nothing to do, but kind of related to kind of marketing and storytelling. But I had an internship at the end my last year in college at a local SaaS company. Um, which was called Encino. So they did banking. Their fintech did loan origination and banking software built on Salesforce. So that was my first exposure. I worked for the release manager at the time in product development, but doing a lot of project management, project coordination, liaisoning between product and the rest of the companies, and including the marketing team. So that was really my first foray in SaaS. I did minor in IT as well, so have some experience, always had experience there, whether it was taking program class, web design, something like that. So, a little tech savvy. And then ever since then, since graduation, I've held marketing positions at IT or SaaS companies from more traditional to your startup, Series B, etc.
I love that. Okay, so one question that I have for you is whether or not did you like tech and SaaS as a concept, because there are a lot of people that love writing, but they question whether or not B2B content marketing or writing for a B2B company is something that they'd enjoy doing just because it sounds stale. Do you feel like it's stale, or how do you get yourself excited about it?
Absolutely. And that's another really great question, and something that, if your listeners or people listening to this, if you do consider yourself more, I think it's, what is it, left brain or right brain, whichever one is more
Right
like
brain's creative.
creative. Okay, so if you consider yourself, I'm creative, I'm more right brain, and especially me as like, imagine me as a college student, I was like, yeah, like, you know, down with the system. Like, I want to be, I don't know, can I curse?
Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, fuck the system, fuck the man. Like, I don't want to be a corporate, slave or clown. And I think that's something that people struggle with a lot, especially when you're young and you're creative and you like something like writing or design or art. I was also a very big like visual artist for the beginning part of my life, and when I was younger, a lot of that. So like that was something I struggled with, and I think another part of me is kind of logical, and you have to think at the end of the day, or is more business oriented. And it's like, okay, I want to design my life in a way where I can be comfortable and can use whatever that income is at the time to live the way I want to live. So not working to live, but or not living to work, but working to live. So um ever since, this goes back actually to what we were talking about remote work, ever since I started exploring career paths and like the outlook for certain careers, I think what pushed me away from publishing was the ultra competitiveness, especially if you want to work in a city like New York, or where there's a big publishing scene and a lot of competition. Kind of the low pay and kind of the way they treat employees, right? And I was always kind of curious about tech because I was aware that doing similar things or having similar skills to what I would be doing in publishing, I could do in a marketing job or a tech, at a tech company. I don't have to be a programmer in order to succeed and thrive in tech. And I studied English, right, and communication, and now being able to work, make a good living at a tech company, have the flexibility of remote work, which is very popular and present in tech, and be able to travel, which was something I always wanted to do in college. I said, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to live my life the way I want to live it, without having to be tied down. So I think, you know, if you find B2B maybe soul sucking in some ways, you have to kind of look at the trade off, or you have to find inspiration in the everyday. But at the end of the day, I don't regret going into tech, and I encourage it for a lot of people, and especially liberal arts minded um, people and students.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because I find that most right brained individuals are like more creative individuals, um, they actually do pretty well in SaaS just because there's so little creativity. And you have two different types of SaaS. You have like the hyperscalers, which are your Google, AWS, Microsoft, like your big companies. Those are more bureaucratic. Those have more processes. Those are the ones that people always assume are SaaS, right? Like you hear SaaS and you hear, okay, software companies, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Well, AWS, Google, Microsoft, like all of these big names. Whereas um, the really interesting thing that I've found about SaaS is that there are so many different niches. Like you could find a SaaS that is very closely aligned with one of your hobbies or interests, and it's just like everybody needs writers, everybody needs marketers. So that's also really fascinating thing because I didn't realize how expansive SaaS was until I got into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only just getting bigger. Like, you love animals, you love pets. There's a SaaS company for that. You love wine, there's a SaaS company for that. Travel, like anything industry related, you can think of it as different industries over the years are digitizing. I graduated going on 10 years ago, and more when I was just, getting my first professional experiences. And since then, so many industries are digitalizing and becoming SaaS solutions are more relevant, there. So absolutely. I mean, I can't say that's true for my experience necessarily, since I worked with accounting software and then with phone systems. So not to say that I don't love, the work I did or do there. Um, and kind of finding inspiration in that. I think you said something really important that has kind of guided me through the years or in the moments when I was, things were feeling monotonous, is like you really have to bring yourself, and if you're a creative person, and you have to bring your personality and your creativity to your work in that industry. And just because you work in tech, or you work for accounting software company, or you work for whatever, it could be the unsexiest kind of industry, but you can bring that to your work. And the other thing, I think, even in large companies, there's still opportunity to make an impact, and there's still opportunity to innovate. And not all big companies are as put together as we think they are either.
True. True. And you've worked with a lot of them, so you've seen the
Yeah,
insides.
absolutely.
That's interesting. Okay, so I want to go backwards into your story and kind of touch on how you started. Like, what did marketing look like whenever you started? How has it evolved? And how did what you did in the very beginning help you to become who you are today as a marketer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to say that after every time you ask a question. I think for me, a lot of my, besides the writing, and content and like storytelling, that's essential. I feel like every marketer talks about that, so I'm not even going to like talk about that, because you can find a million things on like the story and good content, and that, which is very much essential to good marketing. But I think something in my experience that was like very resonant, and now even today, like when I think of my day to day, is being a project manager, and knowing how to organize people, tasks, processes, systems, like everything. And it's like, I'm not sure if people think about that as much as they should when it comes to being a marketer, being a campaign manager, a demand gen marketer, field marketer, partner marketer, especially. Like all of these things, you really have to be organized and a good kind of manager of, could be people, could be partners, could be managing up, could be managing projects, and it could be all of the above. Like I said, my first foray into SaaS and tech was in release management. A lot of checks and balances, a lot of timelines, a lot of development stages, working with different stakeholders, learning how to announce things internally and get internal buy-in, and then communicate that outwardly in a way. Like that is such an important skill. So being organized, project management, seeing campaigns, things through, and managing people, whether that's getting buy-in, managing a team, etc. That's kind of where I started, just from like that task management, that timeline management, to moving up to, managing people, to managing up, to managing expectation with partners, and all of those different complications that go into it.
I've been experiencing that a little bit where like every time that you add new tasks onto your plate or every time that there's something new, it's like you always have to find your equilibrium, right? So like things get
Hmm.
added onto you and then you have to find your equilibrium. And I found because I had a kind of foundation where like I knew that I liked certain systems or like I like certain note-taking softwares. But I actually think that it is imperative that you find a foundation and you create a foundation for yourself. Like, what is the project management tool you like to work out of? What is the calendar you like to use? And just like, because then whenever you get all of these extra tasks and people and processes and things that you have to work around, it's a lot easier to just add them and adjust and find your equilibrium rather than trying to like fix everything and do everything all at once. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And my thought is like I'm super simple and
I love
keeping
that.
it like the phrase "kiss, keep it simple, stupid" is like I've probably said this before a
Hmm.
million times, is very much like a mantra that I remind myself of because it's so easy to get complicated. It's so easy to have ideas, like especially when you work in marketing or you work in partner marketing. Everyone can have $1 million idea, but it's not worth anything until you actually execute it and plan it out and do it.
Clap,
So,
clap, clap. Yes, exactly. 100%.
yeah, and I think that's the key, right? It's like, okay, yeah, you can find the fanciest project management tool or whatever, or use this or that. I literally have next to me a pen with a pad of paper, and I don't want to be that person that says that like, oh, just a pen and paper, I'm old school. No, it's just like you have to find what works for you and keep it simple that works for you, right? Like I'll make to-do lists weekly, daily if I need to, monthly, have those different outlooks of like you said, those tasks and being able to prioritize them, know what kind of needs to be done first, know what has more dependencies, and all of those things that go into project management, I think are applicable to a lot of jobs, but marketing especially, I feel like it's a skill, coupled with critical thinking and being able to leverage data against those ideas, or creativity, and just kind of marrying those both together are really important for marketers.
You mentioned prioritization, and I think that that is it's talked about a lot. Um, how do you prioritize? Like, what helps you to prioritize? I know that for me, it's like I need to understand the biggest picture and also the day to day so that I can be like, okay, what aligns best with somebody else, my leader, my
Hmm.
manager's idea of where we're supposed to be going. How do you do it?
Yeah, I would say like thinking of like three ways to think about priority right off the bat would be like me, my manager, and business impact, right? And a lot of those things are kind of tied together. So, like me starting at the personal level, it's like, what do I have on my plate? What am I working on? What I have going on in even my life? Like, how much can I take on right now? And just kind of that's really like a self-reflection and self-assessment. And even like, okay, maybe these three tasks won't have as much of a business impact, but they're three things that have just been weighing on me that I need to get done and I can get done quickly, and I'll just get them out of the way and I'll feel good about myself. That's important, right? And then I think the next one is these are not necessarily in any particular order, but thinking, okay, my manager or my direct team, what is important to them? If my manager or whoever I'm reporting to, if you're the CEO, think what your customers are wanting, or someone who's holding you accountable. If you're kind of the CEO, I guess from that perspective. But for me, or being having a manager is thinking, if they're asking you for something 5 times, then yeah, you better do it and just get that, kind of out of the way. And that's kind of an external pressure. And lastly is the business impact, which is, usually involves multiple stakeholders, is beyond just something you need to do, is beyond maybe your immediate manager or team. And it's something, what is the lasting kind of impact on that? How impactful will it be for your business, and tying it back to the individual or yourself, like how impactful would that be even for your achievement or in your career or something like that, depending how big that project is or that accomplishment. And that can kind of help you. Those are at least three lenses to like look
Hmm.
through prioritizing projects or tasks.
I like how you kind of took the perspective of treating yourself as an individual contributor within your own company. So, like, you have to be thinking about, okay, what are the accomplishments that will look good, not just like on my resume, but also will prove my value. Because even right now, especially right now, the economy is not doing so well and people are getting fired left and right. Um, Proving your value is more important than ever right now.
Absolutely. And for marketers, I mean, marketing, right, is almost always a department that's affected by layoffs, and one of the first departments that is affected. So
Hmm.
um, data is extremely important. Hey, even if you work in content or you work in brand, there, are ways to, and it's not to take away from your work or anything like that, but there's ways to show, your value or your impression in a kind of business lens or sense. And I think that's really important for all marketers is to really tie yourself to metrics of some sort and some kind of business metrics. The closer you are to revenue, that kind of becomes more clear cut. But the farther from revenue, there's still business impact and there's still ways to show that. So I totally agree. It's very important and it's really just doing a service to yourself as a professional in your work, to be able to show that. And I mean, I would love to help anyone who, on your individual case or just trying to figure that out. I get it. It doesn't come super clearly to every single position.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you. You've always been so good with shouting people out and or saying something about the layoffs. So I appreciate that. You said that on here
Yeah.
as well. And then, okay, so why is it that marketing is more difficult or more affected by the layoffs? Is it that outbound is directly tied to revenue? Like you see, salesperson calls, okay, um, closed one. Like you can see that direct line. Whereas marketing, and you have both inbound and nearbound marketing, and it's like, okay, so for inbound marketing, sometimes you don't even know that the things that
Hmm.
you did, like content marketing, drove a sign up 2 or 3 months later, right? So is that the case, or
Yeah,
what do you see?
that's a good, thought, and it's like it's a complex issue, and it's obviously different for every business. I think from like a really broad perspective, marketing, I think CMOs have like the highest turnover for any position at any
That's true.
time.
I've heard that.
Yeah, as executives, and I honestly think a lot of the times it's like I've been fortunate enough to be in organizations where marketing was valued or the leader at the time um, really set the precedent and set the expectation and manage that expectation again, which is so important internally with stakeholders that, hey, this is what marketing is here for. This is my experience, why I'm here, and this is a plan of what we can contribute at what time. And I can't speak for every instance or every case. Are people overpromising? Are the leadership wants to bring on marketing? Are they not aligned with what realistic goals look like? Or, and that's something that we all see in partnerships and marketing, et cetera, and sales. You know, there's always that kind of like, hey, setting that expectation and making sure that it's a good fit. I think marketing as a whole like kind of always struggles with that, and people have um maybe historically thought of marketing as like, oh, that's just like the art department or the expense department, or people, just, make it look pretty and things like that. And of course, that's a design and brand is really crucial and critical, maybe one of the most important parts of marketing. But I think kind of SaaS has helped a lot as well to make marketers revenue marketers and revenue generating or attributed to revenue. In my career, I've always been in demand gen and partner marketing, and I've always had revenue goals attributed to lead and revenue goals attributed to my OKRs or my goals or rocks or whatever we use. Um, and at first, it felt like, hey, well, I'm not making sales calls. I'm not the one closing these deals. And then the more you kind of learn in that environment, what you can do, how tracking works, how reporting works, how analysis and insights of data can inform your marketing decisions. There will always be things that, yes, don't have perfect tracking, but the more and closer you can get to revenue, really makes your work more satisfying in a way because you're also able to say, hey, I influenced this much pipeline and I created this much, and this is what's qualified, this is what's closed, this is, and learning those metrics will just make you more powerful as a professional and a marketer, as you go on. So I definitely recommend people who are earlier in their career or getting into SaaS, like learn those metrics, learn how they impact your role, and don't, be intimidated by that.
Have OKRs ever stressed you out?
Um, Probably. I think probably. But this is what I tell people and I tell myself at the end of the day, I'm like, unless your SaaS company is like critical to like open heart surgery or ending world poverty or something, like at the end of the day it doesn't matter. And a lot of SaaS companies as well, especially in startups, are like, you know drinking the Kool-Aid or things like that, or thinking, this is the most important thing, this OKR is the most important metric and goal in your life, and your firstborn child will, it depends on the life of your firstborn child. But really, when you think about it, um, it doesn't matter. Of course, do your job, do well at your job, and I think you need to just have those kind of level setting conversations with yourself if you are getting really stressed over something. So yes, probably at sometimes I was really stressed about something, and if it was something that I realistically didn't think I could achieve, could be another thing, conversation with your manager, or making sure you're in the right position or opportunity at that time. But at the end of the day, um like I said, most of the time it's like we're not solving world hunger with our SaaS solutions. Maybe some are, but the ones that I've worked in aren't. So I don't have to feel the weight of the world on my back.
One SaaS solution has to be at some, like, one has to be. But the cool thing is also OKRs are just upward trends. So like, given a block of time, is the trend upwards? And if it's up and down per day, that's entirely fine. Like, if you think about your personal performance, I've been tracking my health on a like a health tracking app,
Hmm.
and it's been interesting because I've started to see, how I go up and down based on the different factors in my environment. And that that happens in work as well, right? You have an off day, it's okay. um
Hmm.
or maybe you made an assumption that was incorrect, but is the trend upwards? And if it's not, okay, well, like, then you're probably not doing your job very well. But
Yeah, absolutely, or it's not the right fit. Because I totally agree with that, and that's like a really great, feedback, especially as a people manager as well, to think like, it is unrealistic to be like, you need to give 100% every day.
yeah.
No, because that's not realistic, because life happens, things happen, and some days you might give 200%, and some days you might give 70%, and that's fine. And like you said, I'm very results oriented. So if your OKRs or your goals are set together with your manager, they're impacting the business the way they should be, that's all aligned. And at the end of the day, if you're achieving those key results, or those that impact that goal, that's what's important, or the trend is upward, or whatever that is, that's what matters at the end of the day. Not getting caught on the daily or the individual um,
Hmm.
performance metrics. So
I
yeah,
love that. Okay, let's go into demand gen, because
sure.
I would love to hear, first off, summarized, what is demand gen to you, and then can you explain to me what was involved in your role whenever you were a demand gen manager?
Yeah, demand gen. What is demand gen? Demand generation, generating demand, right? I
Love
think
it.
like what does that mean? I don't know, and sometimes it's really up for interpretation for the organization, for the marketer, for the person. And for me, um generating demand essentially just boils down to, how do you create and capture, interest and then turn that into demand or desire for your product, ultimately leading in conversions, which to me is typically sales, new sales, but it could be, more upward in the funnel as signups, could be views, clicks, signups down the funnel to, qualified, create a pipeline, qualified, and new MRR. So it really depends. And I think it's just like looking at that whole funnel. Now, I've seen demand gen marketers that when it comes to specific skills, companies look for paid and SEO or inbound, or maybe it's outbound in events or partner marketing or whatever. And there's always kind of that mix of skills. And I think that's why when I've worked at a demand as a demand gen manager specifically, for the different positions I've worked in, it depended on what that company was looking to fulfill and those goals that they were looking to accomplish and fulfill with that role. So I am not a big like PPC and paid marketer, right? I don't like it. It's not my strong suit. Do I have experience in it? Yes. But that's over time I learned that's not really what I enjoyed doing. Kind of optimizing paid advertising campaigns or search advertising, etc. So when there became times like looking for work or positions, and I saw, oh, this is heavily paid marketing, or this is a lot like mostly PPC based, I would just say, okay, it's not like a fit for me. It's not for me. So for me, demand gen, yes, is very generalist, and I think if you've ever heard of like the T-shaped skills model, is really interesting, and I think it's very like applicable to demand gen marketers. Is like you have content, social media marketing, PPC, events, ABM, whatever. And that's like your bar of the T, the horizontal part. And then the vertical part of the T or the stem is like where do you go deep in those skills? So we all have the breadth and understanding of a lot of different parts of the marketing machine or funnel and engine. And then we have those specific skills where we have those strengths, that experience, and that expertise. And for me, it was always like partner, event, outbound marketing, and content. And then, that might be different for someone else. So either if you're hiring people, you hire people in those areas that can either take over and manage those pieces that you are managing, or in areas that you're weak at, or you can hire an agency to do that. So there's a lot of different strategies there.
Why do you think that those were your strong suits? The demand gen, event, outbound, etc.
For me, I why I really liked outbound marketing, working with the sales team, doing events and doing partner marketing, because I really liked to work with people. I didn't like to be in PPC, for example. I'm like, okay, I'm creating these ads, I'm optimizing these ads, I'm looking at the same ads, running new ads, and it was very like I felt very behind the scenes and felt very kind of the idea of like continual optimizing as well, and like A/B testing and those things just wasn't that appealing or interesting to me. It just made me really bored. So when I started doing events, and hey, I was out there with the sales team, I was getting the sales team ready, I was um, coordinating with graphics to do the booth design, contests, themes, things like that, experience, interacting with people there, and then booking demos while you're there, seeing what closes from that event, and just being like really at the closer in the heart of the action of sales was really more interesting and exciting to me. And most recently I work in partner marketing because while partner marketing can encompass like a lot of different campaigns, I really enjoy working directly with partner managers, salespeople, and the partners directly. So building those relationships, and I feel like in those kind of positions, I've had the opportunity, and at least in the companies I've worked in, to be working with sales, working with people, working close to the revenue or the action there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about partners in a minute because, as you know, I love partnerships. But
Hmm
okay, so you mentioned PPC. PPC, for anybody who doesn't know, is pay per click, and basically that's when, and correct me if I get anything wrong, but it's basically whenever you put out an ad, you keep on testing and you keep on trying to optimize it for conversions and or sales. So it's
Hmm.
basically like, if I change a color, does that make more people click? If I change the person on it, does it make more people click? And like, um, the goal is just to convert. So all of the ads that you see on Instagram, on TikTok, on Google, like somebody is underneath that going through and breaking down every single aspect of that ad, trying to make sure that it is the best ad that they can produce. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, yeah, and that's super exciting for a lot of people, right? It's like, oh,
Yep.
cool, like I get to make ads that are seen by thousands, millions, hundreds of people. And you could kind of, depending on the position, you could have control of the creative or the copy, like writing the copy or doing the creative and what that call to action conversion rate on the landing page, etc. Like that's really exciting to a lot of people and a lot of marketers, and I think that's awesome.
Okay, so then also all of the things that you mentioned, SEO, search engine optimization, PPC, email marketing, ABM, etc. All of these are kind of tactics, right? So, like, what are the fundamental principles, if you will, in marketing? The things that everybody needs to understand in order to eventually adapt. Because, for example, PPC and ads were affected whenever cookies were all whatever
Hmm.
happened with cookies and data tracking, and then um, they were regulated, and then you have AI, which could disrupt different things. Like
Hmm.
there are all these things that could potentially disrupt the way that we currently do things, the tactics that we have. What are those fundamental um, skills and or
Hmm.
things that people need to understand to do marketing well?
Yeah, I think like data and technology is kind of like a layer like above that, right? Like above that fundamental skills. I would say like that's still very important. To work with marketing automation software, know, how to work with different email marketing, like the rules around cookies and data privacy and all of that is and now AI, like all that's really important. But I think the foundational skills like do go back to kind of what we were talking about in the beginning and like that liberal arts kind of thinking, which for me is like, you know, kind of a creativity element, more or less. I think like instead of creativity, maybe it's like problem solving. So having like a good like solution oriented mindset, and looking at things like that, like how do we achieve this
Hmm.
goal through being open to the tactic? That's really important, and that kind of critical thinking. Project management for sure will always be there. And I was going to say something else. I think project management, oh, duh, and storytelling, as we always come back to as well. So, in order to tell a good story, you need to know who's the audience, what's the expected behavior or result of that you want to elicit, and then how are you going to measure that? So, like those three things, thinking when it comes to like your story or your campaign or whatever you call it, um, it really comes down to those things. You need to know your audience, who are you marketing to, what do they care about, what personas, etc. You need to know, what is the anticipated result or behavior that you want to measure from them, and then how are you going to do that, to measure that, and that's kind of how you look at, I mean, marketing. I mean, that's kind of how it is, and it's really, when it's really broken down that simply, um, that's how you accomplish that, whether it's through ads, whether it's through SEO, whether it's through content, whether it's through events. That's really up to you and your experience, and that's kind of where that human element comes in, right? And it's like that's where the testing comes in, that's where the critical thinking comes in, and it's like that's what makes marketers good or bad. It's and if you have those fundamentals down, a good understanding, and you have them down right, um that's kind of what you should focus on. I mean, yes, you should focus on the tactic because some tactics are better for certain goals than others, but you will learn that over time. So that really just comes with more experience.
Yeah, and actually, you just saying all of that made me think about the fact that I think whenever you focus on the principles or like the fundamental levels, like the storytelling, and um, then it makes it easier for whenever something like an AI comes into the space and changes things or disrupts things for you to evolve because
Hmm.
you're not so bought into the idea that marketing is ABM or marketing is PPC or
Hmm.
marketing is SEO. Marketing is storytelling to you. Marketing is it's much closer to the customer, and I think that definition has a lot to do with how people will evolve with AI, let's say, or in the past how they evolved whenever we got the internet.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's adapting. I mean, hey, the internet and .com, like,
Yeah.
and SaaS, and then now, AI and all these different kind of technology disruptions. And AI is super exciting. It's like a lot of people are afraid, and it's like, hey, don't be afraid of AI. If you work in content and you're like, holy shit, like, Chat GPT can now, you can have your own, everyone can have their own content agency or write blog posts and things like that. And it's like, but who's going to prompt that? Who's editing?
Hmm.
Who's curating? Who knows how to use these tools in a way? Who's prompting the tool and teaching it?
Hmm.
It's like there are so many ways to harness that new technology and make it work for you
Hmm.
instead of kind of having the other mindset of like, oh no, it's bad, it's not perfect, it'll, there's kind of three ways, right? You could think like, oh, I'm afraid of this, oh my God, or you could think like, oh, it's not like good enough, like I'm fine. It's like, well, we don't know yet, what will
Hmm.
happen. And then the third way is kind of like, hey, this is really exciting and this is really useful. I can use it in my day to day like this, and I can learn how to leverage this technology in a different way. Hey, if I'm a content writer and OpenAI ChatGPT can write like 85% of my content or 80% or even 70% right now decently, do it. Make it like you use it, you do it, and you take advantage of that and you make your role, more elevate yourself, make it more of curating type of
Yep.
role. So yeah.
I think one of the things that I've been playing around with is that the idea that what AI does right now. So like in the future, I don't know what AI is going to do. I think that AI will get really big, and so it'll be better in the generative front. So like generative generation, it's like creating its own things. People and marketers are looking at it in terms of being generative, like, oh, it's going to, write this whole blog post for me. It doesn't really do that well. Like if I play around with it, it can get close enough, but
Hmm.
you still as a marketer need to be able to go in there and know what looks wrong and know what looks right. And I think that what it can do potentially, this is an idea I'm playing around with,
Hmm.
is take the entry level workers and move them up to the speed of mid level marketers. So like,
Hmm.
and mid level workers. So it took mid level workers like 2 or 3 years to get where they are. Well, now we don't even need that 2 or 3 years because AI can bump us up, and so you're almost at the same place that a mid level marketer is, just if you know how to use AI correctly. And I think that that is valuable for people just starting today. Like you don't have to wait for that 2 or 3 years to, for example, sales. I was talking to somebody who uses Chat GPT to do role plays and to help fine tune their
Hmm.
responses to things. Or like I used Midjourney to help me create the PLX website, plxsummit.com.
Hmm.
Not not the one that's published now, but the new one that's coming. I'm so excited. Uh,
Amazing.
but like I couldn't use it alone. I had to do that plus Photoshop plus Figma. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't just right now at least rely just on ChatGPT or just on AI. It still needs people.
Yeah, exactly. And it, probably will for a long time. And that's the thing. Like you have to be open to your role evolving as well with technology and moving into that, different, whether curator, editor, whatever it is, AI prompts engineer, that title is like new now, and it's so interesting. um I think like that's awesome, and I totally agree. Like it's like for rapid, even just rapid like information, like, hey, I'm working in a new industry or something I haven't worked with. AI, tell me like the five most critical things about this industry right now. What are the topics they care about the most? What write an outline for like, a webinar on this topic on that, and like it'll do it. And it's like, yeah, you need to know at the end of the day, and you need to validate that information, and you need to flush it out or work on it, and that's kind of knowing where to do that, like you said, is the key right now. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So let's now segue into partner marketing. Now, I just want to say this because I think it's so important that I say this. You're a partner marketer, and partner marketers are actually quite rare. Like, you don't actually see that many distinguished partner marketers out there. So, tell me, what is a partner marketer, and why did you believe in partner marketing enough to become a partner marketer? Like, this is your path forward.
Yeah, no, such a good question. I think so as we've talked about for the bulk of this episode, like working in demand gen, and as a demand gen marketer, what does that mean? And like that's what I've always worked in, and being close to revenue, T-shaped skills, doing a lot of different things, generalist to specialist. So partner marketing was always kind of one of those skills, right? And as I had more experience with it, as I did it more, um, I realized like, hey, this is something I'm good at. And what it was, was kind of working directly with these business partners, however they were defined in that particular organization. And luckily, I've worked in organizations where these business partners were very critical to, the products and sales and success of the company. And that kind of partnership, or that partner relationship, and how that worked out made influence, the type of marketing that I would do with them. So, what that could look like, that could be, hey, we sell this platform, this software, and we work with ISVs or independent software vendors, these other companies that integrate with this platform to provide automation or provide different services, for different customer needs, for different industries, for things like that. How do we showcase them? Like, maybe that's coming up with a webinar series, maybe it's selling sponsorships to our customer conferences, ways for these people to get in, and working with our inside sales reps to work on spiffs or different things of that sort, how to sell and recommend solutions. It could also be yeah, product integrations. Where does this integrating product like fulfill a different feature? How do we go to market with that? A feature gap, how do we go to market with that? How does it fulfill this customer need, etc.? Crafting that go-to-market messaging, crafting sales enablement, um, all of that. So it involves a lot of different tactics. But at the end of the day, like partner marketing is working with this outside organization, that you're business partners with in some sort of relationship or way, and kind of establishing and creating and achieving those mutually beneficial goals. And depending on your role in partner marketing or partnerships, you could source those relationships, you could work with existing ones, you can, whatever that is, it's just so exciting. And at the end of the day, like, I really enjoy working directly with those other companies. So more recently, how I transitioned, from demand gen to partner marketing was kind of thinking of my skill set holistically, the career path, and thinking kind of that way. Do I want to be a generalist for the rest of my life? Some people are, and that's a great path. And hey, sometimes that makes great marketing directors, CMOs, and kind of, that type of person who can holistically see an entire marketing org. For me, I don't think I necessarily saw that. for my interests in SaaS, and I kind of wanted to specialize in a way and become an expert in something. And partner marketing, as is increasing and the number of SaaS companies, as people are more cognizant of ecosystem and that idea of what other technologies do you play with, and nearbound and inbound, and these different marketing methodologies, and indirect sales, and your kind of reputation as a company in that ecosystem, how others view you. It's very interesting. And I think that's why partner marketing is becoming more, it is relatively rare and it's becoming more common, because people are realizing all these complexities need subject matter experts who can manage,
Hmm.
these complexities and these goals and these things. So it's a really exciting position to be in right now.
And most partner marketing or partner marketers and partner marketing managers and anybody who's in partner marketing, they haven't been in partner marketing for that long. So what was it like getting into partner marketing initially?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned, did I start in my organizations and in positions that were partner marketing manager? No. And I started as a demand gen manager, a marketing manager, marketing coordinator, those kind of general titles. And it just so happened in those particular companies that I joined, kind of in the beginning, was that, working for a value added reseller or a VAR in that industry that kind of resold this accounting software from the publishers and then worked with these other independent software vendors. Like that was their whole business model is based on partnerships and partners, right? And indirect sales. So that was really interesting and fascinating. And that was kind of the ecosystem that I grew up in as a marketer. So it was very advantageous to then want to pursue this partner marketing path. And then beginning at my next company because of that previous experience that I had, it's like, hey, now I'm working with our tech integration partners to drive revenue and new sales through co-marketing activities with them because, why? Because it improves our stickiness, product stickiness, it improves our brand recognition, and it's a very efficient, cost-efficient, way of growth and sales. So that made sense. And then it's like if you keep seeking roles like that, and even if the title's not there but the responsibilities or the type of organization is relevant to partnerships, you have to kind of think that way because then it will just snowball, and you'll keep building that expertise, and then you will have that title that's specific to partner marketing that I haven't had for years, even though I've been doing partner marketing for years. So yeah, who knows, like 5, 10 years, how many partner marketers will be out there?
I'm hoping a lot. I think that
Yeah,
there's a lot of green space.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, I have appreciated literally every single thing that you shared. I think that I came into this episode knowing a little bit about your background, but I didn't know this much. And I'm so excited because I love talking to you. I also love how excited you are about doing cool things in the space. So if anybody wants to follow Daniel, definitely go do that on LinkedIn. And are you ready for my last questions? These are the big questions that I ask everybody.
Okay, now I'm scared.
Don't be
Sure.
scared. Okay, first question. What is the biggest challenge that you have faced in SaaS?
Oh, that's a good question. The biggest challenge I've faced in SaaS. I think I think like we had such a good conversation and it actually made me reflect and think, and I even talked about things that I haven't talked about in a long time and was reflecting about, and I actually think the biggest challenge was getting started, and I mean that specifically getting in the right mindset, and kind of that like switch, right, was like I'm a creative person. I'm an artist person. I can't work in a soul-sucking tech company with cubicles and like literally that was like my like when I was interning like that's there were cubicles and it was like this and that and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't do this. I need to be an individual. I need to be something." And kind of meeting people through the way and coming to terms with myself and really thinking, "You know what? But that doesn't matter. It's all external. I can be myself. I am myself, and this is a means to my goals, and this supports, the kind of lifestyle I want." And SaaS, and then just learning to love it and learning to love the high growth and learning to love the technology and the different things about it over time. That was definitely, I would say, a big challenge at first to kind of commit, to get started and commit to it.
I love that. Um, yeah, I've never gotten that answer before, so I absolutely love that. The second question, um, do you know the 80/20 Pareto principle?
Um, Yes, I did. So
Okay.
focus on the 20% that
Accounts for
yields
80% of the results.
80%
Yep.
of the results. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So thinking about the Pareto principle, the 80/20 rule, what 20% accounts for 80% of your success?
Hmm. I would say, hmm, 20% that accounts to 80% of my success. Definitely keeping, again, check of your mindset, your mental health, how you're coming to do your work in that mindset, whether that's self-regulation and emotional intelligence, stress reduction, whatever that is, just having a very good like sense of yourself and awareness is really important. So like, yeah, if you're not feeling the best and you're not having a good day, realize that and realize that maybe your productivity won't be the best that day or for that week, and that's okay. And then I think that goes hand in hand also with what we talked about, which was like that organization and task management. Like I said, you can have a million good ideas, but no one will care unless you do them or
One hundred percent.
attempt them. So I think like that kind of mindset as well, or that organization and task management is really important. And another piece of 20%, I guess, is making sure that you're doing a good, as we're remote, as we're more results focused, these are all good things that I advocate for. But at the end of the day, most of the time you're going to be working with people. And if that's your manager or working with a teammate or working, on Zoom calls, you'll be working with people and you'll be building relationships. You're not always going to love and like any of all of those people. So, sometimes learning how to you don't have to win everyone over, but learning how to build those relationships and be generally liked is also very important, very much so in the business world. So just learning how to kind of pick up on that. Yourself goes a lot into that, your self-regulation. So thinking about yourself, your work, organization, and the people that you work with, and kind of those relationships are the 20% that I would focus on that make the rest 80% of my job a lot easier.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that is also extremely understated how much you work better if everything at home and everything internally is aligned and good and at peace and at rest and like figured out. You can't, feel stress at home and then think that you're going to just do a great job at work. Probably
Hmm.
not. So yeah,
Absolutely.
100%. Okay, and last question. What do you wish that you knew before you started? Some piece of advice that you'd give to people who are just starting and or have started fairly recently.
Um, it doesn't matter what your education is. If you want to work in marketing of some sort, or even, a lot of just working in SaaS, like I think a lot, I don't know if this has changed, or at least like I feel like when I was thinking about like my future school, like you think, oh, I have to do A, B, and C before I'm able to do D or do this. Like I have to do this certification because I want to do this. And it's like something I wished a lot of like, I wish I knew was like what is going to be most important is your experience. So like you know, say you want to be a graphic designer, you don't need to go to school for that. You don't need to take a certification in it. Yeah, if you want to learn things or do like courses to learn how to use tools, great. But you don't need like I guess like a credential or like a requirement, right? And you can start graphic designing and build a portfolio and get your first job. And that a lot, and I feel like that kind of accessibility, and especially in this age with like the wealth of knowledge and resources that are out there that are kind of like ungated, is so important that like hey, if you want to do marketing, you don't have to necessarily do this certification or have this like credential or have this like and I really like that because I like thinking, hey, I majored in English. Did I ever think I'd be working in this high tech environment or these startups or working remote or doing this? No. And that was kind of what I wish I guess I knew sooner, but I ended up finding out anyway, and it's all good after that. So
That's amazing.